Context. FF player, ex-WoW player, plays Monster Hunter for the first time ever. Never touched any Monster Hunter game in my entire life. Know nothing about it except that the weapons have funny names. Okay, Insect Glaive, Hunting Horn. Never known anything about it. All I know is I'd done the FF crossover, you know, in Final Fantasy, where we fought that big red dragon dude. And I was like, well, that was a cool fight. That was a bit different. I like Dark Souls, so maybe we'll give Monster Hunter a go, because I heard the combat is arguably somewhat similar, okay? So I figured we'll start this tomorrow. However, I did want to have a little look into the weapon types, so I'm not going in completely blind. Maybe I'll fall in love with this. I have no idea what to expect, honestly. I'm going to be pausing and stuff like that, okay?
Hey guys,
tell me if it's loud enough and
Welcome back
things.
to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about the weapons of Monster Hunter World and what weapon might suit you. There are a lot of new players only hopping on Monster Hunter World for the first time as we move through the end of the year toward Monster Hunter Wilds. Obviously, there's also a lot of expert and veteran players who already know their tried and true weapon and what suits them the most. But this video should serve all audiences on what the weapons are like and why they're just so awesome in the first place. And to be clear, I will not be ranking the weapons in this video. I have made a couple weapon tier lists.
We don't need ranks.
This is going to be more of a video where I really talk up every weapon on why they're so good.
Fuck yeah.
There truly is no bad weapon in Monster Hunter.
That is what we like to hear. Play for fun. Play what suits your playstyle the best. No stupid ass tier lists, meta gaming, picking the best thing theoretically through the damage. I like that he's going to give each one its time in the sun as well. That sounds awesome. So I reckon I'm probably going to be, I might be a longsword Andy, a great sword Andy, a dual blade guy. I'm open to being tempted by the big bonk with the hammer, to be fair. Gunlance sounds kind of cool. I'm intrigued about that one. Switch axe, I'm intrigued. Charge blade, no idea what that is. I'm probably less likely to go on the ranged, if anything. And I'm probably less likely to go sword and shield. But all the others are kind of fair game at this point, I reckon.
So that's enough Terra ranting out of the way. Let's get on to the first weapon and my personal favorite and the OG weapon of Monster Hunter.
He's really bigging this one up. It's the first weapon. It's my favorite one.
Sword and shield. A lot of people like to call the sword and shield a jack-of-all-trades weapon. It's a weapon that's really good.
I mean, if you can block huge
damage,
attacks.
It has really great mounting damage, and it also has blunt damage with the use of the shield. The sword and shield is lacking in range a bit, but it makes up for it with its lightning-quick attack speeds, and its very short or long combos, depending on how hard you want to go in an instance. It's a weapon that
Okay, I like the sound of that. I mean, I do like jumping in, doing a couple attacks, and then jumping out and playing it a little bit safer. I feel like with a big two-hander or something, with a great sword, the very limited Monster Hunter gameplay I've seen was like, I think Asmongold tried it, and I think he went great sword. And I remember watching him, like, he's like, I think he like sharpened his sword or something, and then he like did like, he was like, bosh, bosh, bosh. And then he did like a spinny flippy flip into like a bosh. And then like he kept missing it like every time. Because it took like 10 seconds to ramp it up, and then you would miss it every time. And I'm like, for me, I feel like that would be really frustrating. So I do like the idea of like walking in, go slash, 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 shield bash in the Ed mate, and then jump back out. And if it gives a good defense, I could play like a bit more Puso mode, you know? But we'll see, we'll see. Okay, sword and shield. I'm less turned off than I thought I would be. Less turned off than I thought, right? The big bosh, yeah. It's called being bad. Okay, so it's just him being shit, and it's not actually the great sword being hindrance. I got you, and I believe that. Great sword is awesome, and then you miss for like 5 minutes straight. Yeah, and I feel like that would really frustrate me. So I don't want to sign myself up for anything that I might be annoyed about or might dislike or something. So I'm trying to limit any potential like frustrating or like quit moments, right? As much as I can. Actually
has little to no recovery on a lot of the attacks, and it's a weapon there you can really make up a lot of your own combos as all of the attacks kind of flow into
like 100 damage.
This weapon is also great because you're able to block with the shield, of course, it's in the name, and while it is a small shield, it gets the job done if you do need to hit that panic button. You can also
that's a good option to have.
You're on the move and while it is unsheathed, so that also is the one bonus this weapon has over a lot of the.
That sounds like a kind of like noob friendly weapon combo though.
other weapons.
Like
this weapon just
potions,
covers every single
blocks,
aspect that you need, and it's a very fast weapon.
nimble,
this weapon
fast.
is just a monster, honestly, man. So to wrap up the sword and shield, not
That
only
sounds
is this
OP
weapon
almost.
really fast, really strong, but it also has access to blunt damage for knockouts, mounting damage, guarding, the works. You really cannot go wrong with this weapon, and I really suggest you pick it up and give it a try. Next up.
Okay. That actually sounded pretty good for like a starter weapon, I'm not gonna lie. It sounded a little bit powerful. Blocking, mobility, potions, quick combos, and he even said the damage was pretty competitive on it as well. So I mean, it sounds really, really good. I did forget to mention that I've like not watched any other videos about this right now, so I don't really know much about how the gameplay loop works. All I know is they're big monsters, must kill, take their shit, skin them, take their scales. You can attack their tails or their head. Like the different body parts have different health pools, and you can jump on their back and hit them. I assume that's what he meant with mounting damage. I don't really know the gameplay loops, but I think you like jump on their back and that's when you're mounting them. And they have like phases where they go to sleep and shit, and then you have to like attack them when they're sleeping or something. Yeah. Sounds like you're all caught up. Right, that's it. Okay.
We have the contested OG weapon of Monster Hunter as well. The Great Sword has always
Great
been
sword,
known
here we
for
go.
being a comically large sword, but in a fantasy setting, it just really hits right, and it
Okay.
really hits right. This weapon has the highest on-hit damage in the game, and there's no wonder why it has the word "great" in the name. Not only does
I assume it's looking at this like 10 seconds of gameplay clip, it looked like he got like animation locked for like a good 3 seconds or something there in a charge. I'm like, I bet there's going to be so many times you're like standing there and you just have to tank a hit to get your hit off, right? So it's really a lot about positioning and like knowing the boss skill set really hard. So I guess this could be a great like second playthrough weapon or something, right? Or like a second weapon where you kind of know what the abilities to expect. But progressing around those kind of animation locks sounds pretty rough.
this weapon have some of the highest damage in the game, but this is also a very fun weapon as it has a playstyle where you
Oh,
can charge the swings of your
holy
attacks.
shit, he's fucking
Combine this
slapped the
with
shit out of
playstyle
that thing.
Sitting in the monster's face and hitting it for the highest on-hit
Here we
damage
go.
in the game. It has a risk-reward playstyle.
All right, the
where you really need to
slide
understand the
was
patterns of
cinema.
monsters to be able to land these really strong attacks. This weapon also has guarding
can
and
ride
release
it?
capabilities as you're able to guard monsters' attacks, but you're also able to use the hyper armor move, the tackle. A lot of weapons make very good use of monster
Okay, here they go.
knockdowns as well.
Big
but this
hit. There it
weapon
is.
really shines above
Bosh.
them. So if you like the idea
600.
of hitting monsters every so often, but hitting hard enough to make up for that time in between, this
Damn.
weapon might be for you. Next up, we have the longsword.
There's no
This is also
health
a very
bar
OG weapon of Monster
on
Hunter
the
and
boss.
one of my personal favorites and a fan favorite of everybody who's played this series.
Ooh, this
Longsword
looks
is a
cool.
Very nice weapon, as it states in the name. It is a very long sword. Jokes
That looks
aside, this is a
cool.
weapon that hits very fast, has very good range, and is capable of some
Ooh, I
pretty
like
good
long
damage.
swords.
This is a weapon that cannot block, however, but due to the mobility of this weapon and due to some of the counter options that this weapon has, you really are cooking some of these monsters. There's a lot of great counter options and even a special sheath stance, which
I have a
also
grappling
has a counter
hook.
tied to it, and some other really unique moves. This is a weapon that is very easy to pick up for beginners, and not only is it good
Boom!
because it's
Holy
good attack
shit!
damage, its range,
That was a lot,
its
damn.
speed of attack, but this weapon also has one of the highest skill ceilings in Monster Hunter.
Oh.
Yes, you heard me right.
Shit. Well, I suck at the game, so I mean, I mean, skill ceiling, hopefully easy to use, but I like range, I like mobility, and it looked fucking badass.
I think the longsword is one of the hardest weapons to master, as you have to be a master at using the EI counters and the foresight slash to keep your red damage buff up on this weapon. So
That
this
looks
is a weapon that
badass.
can kind of be used with a more simple approach, but it's also very hard to master. Next up,
Okay.
we have the dual blades. The dual
So,
blades are
not
also
impossible
a
to
very
play at
old
low
weapon
level.
type of Monster Hunter. This is one of the
Yo,
faster
Teo.
weapon types in terms of actual attack speed with your slashes and combos. Just like the sword and shield, this weapon has some pretty short range, but you make up for that with some of the best mobility in
Okay,
Monster
so it is
Hunter
like
with
two.
its special demon stance and its dash attacks, but this is a weapon that does rely on the stamina gauge for most of its damage. But that doesn't mean this weapon is bad. On the contrary,
You
it's
get the
actually one of
Naruto run in
best
this game
weapons
as well,
in
like
Monster Hunter
Ninja.
for dealing out huge damage. When you really know how to manage your stamina right and you're very good at playing that very movement-heavy playstyle, this weapon really shines. Just like the longsword, this is a weapon that also gains access to stronger attacks as you just use the basic attacks of this weapon. The stamina
like
consumption
combos.
does come from an extra stamina.
Dude, it's doing a lot of damage though. There's like a lot of small numbers, right? But it's like 5 hits of 40 in a row, so that's 200. It's not too bad. This is basically ninja. Right, right. Okay. I mean, that's pretty cool, to be honest. And he said it's like combos and high mobility and high movement and stuff. That sounds awesome. Also probably makes you feel the coolest out of any weapon. I will say, so far, longsword is cooking. Longsword is looking nice. If this goes well, this could be a game that I get really into, for sure. Especially if it's... I mean, Voss described it to me as basically just Dark Souls bosses back to back, which sounds fucking sweet. So, yeah, there's a chance I could fall deep into a pit here, guys. I could become a Monster Hunter enjoyer with you guys. Okay, so dual blades looking cool. Extremely fast attack, slice damage, but it's stamina gauge. So is that the yellow bar up there? Then is it kind of like what is? I guess we'll probably watch another video about the UI, or I'll kind of work it out as we go. But I've seen this one is going up and down and things. Is that like combo bar kind of thing? And then this is stamina, and that's health, obviously, right? Longsword users are the bane of everyone else they play with. Why is that? And longsword users, like, do they have a bad rep? Does everyone hate on longsword because they're like, oh my god, these fucking high maintenance motherfuckers? They trip people. Wait, what do you mean? Like, you have to jump over their sword attacks? Friendly stagger? Oh, what the fuck is that? There's friendly fire. Oh, so you're like, you got the fucking great sword. You're like, boys, move out the way. Oosh, oosh, oorah, spin, flip. Ah, you fucking took out my ankles, bro, with your goddamn longsword combo. Fuck. Shit. Oh, that sounds so annoying. Well, hey, at least if I'm the longsword guy, I can't be the guy getting griefed by the longsword guy, you know?
Weapon has, which are mainly utilizing for the good damage that you want to be dishing. So if you like the idea of being very quick and agile, but also managing your stamina to be putting out that good damage, and through the use of using 2 different stances, I don't know if I'll be good at manage that stamina, this weapon is a very fun choice, and it's also one of the top contenders for the highest damage in the game. The hammer is also a
stamina management and stance.
And while it isn't most players'
big
first
bonk
choice, this weapon is definitely heard from loud and clear by the community behind this weapon. As you might have guessed, the hammer is a weapon that deals a lot of blunt damage, and if you didn't know, in Monster Hunter, blunt damage to the monster's skulls results in a knockout from time to time.
Oh, that's when they sleep.
Another weapon that is a bit short on its reach, but it does a huge amount of damage on those said knockouts that you...
Yeah, that thing is short range, man. That thing is just literally a rock on like a short handle. It's not even like the stereotypically huge fucking mace, you know, where it's really long. Hammer is cinema, huh?
Will be getting with this weapon, but you might be surprised.
We've got some hammer enjoyers in the chat.
Surprising mobility as well. This is a weapon that is great for single
player. Oh, he
player,
tanked that
really
as fuck.
Shines in multiplayer by being able to help your teammates by getting out these
the
knockouts,
knockouts.
The damage that you're doing.
Ah, that is actually so cool. So in team play, like everyone has their job. You take a hammer dude to smash the skull in. You take a longsword guy to slam their tail and like cut the tail off and shit. And then you just have some like great sword dudes just slapping them in the belly, just doing these big old chunkage. That sounds really sweet, actually.
Also has extremely great
supports,
slope and jump attacks, resulting in some really flashy attacks, but also some really good damage. Like I said earlier, the hammer isn't the first choice of many hunters on their first go-around of Monster Hunter, but I promise you, this weapon has a lot more going for it than meets the eye. If you like the idea of knocking out monsters for your teammates, or just by going oonga boonga on the monster's skull, then you definitely should give the hammer a try. Next up, we have...
Dude, that dragon was just like passing out, and he's just going... Bang! 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 Just caving in his fucking skull, dude. Oonga bunga.
Weapons in all of Monster Hunter.
Okay, here we go. Here we go.
Is a weapon that is a
fan favorite,
similar to the hammer. The hunting horde also puts
that thing is huge.
It also cranks some sick tunes for you and your allies.
It's just a bell on a stick.
Along with you, or you're actually playing in a squad, this weapon can provide buffs for you and your teammates, ranging from damage up, to health regenerative skills, or just by straight healing, or with wind resistance.
There's a big bonking stick
Hunter will automatically
on
strum
a
notes
bell,
as you are
and you just
attacking
play
with this
tunes with
weapon,
it and buff
but
your
every
party.
attack
That sounds
has
pretty
a
cool.
specific note that gets played, and to get these buffs for your allies, you need to be playing the right tune. So the hunting horn is a very cool and unique
That's cool.
weapon that actually varies depending on the hunting horn that you're using, as they all have their own different notes. While some notes are similar
so different
from
weapon,
hunting
different
horn to
notes.
hunting horn, having one hunting horn may not be suitable for every single monster that you're fighting in the game, which for me is actually a big plus.
So is this more of like a group play one, or is it perfectly good in solo as well?
Because that allows players to
Perfectly
customize
good.
more and really express themselves through this weapon. The hunting horn's attacks are a bit sluggish and slow, but it does have fast movement outside of that. So if you like a weapon where you
that
have
was
to actually
nice.
think about the combo that you're doing to get
Oh,
the
the
right
spicy
buff for
McChicken.
you or your teammates, this weapon might be for you. Next up, we have another OG weapon of the
Who's a hunting horn main in the chat? Let me see a show of hands. Me. Hell yeah, brother. Okay, hunting
Monster
horn
Hunter
enjoyers.
series, which is the Lance. The Lance is an extremely underrated weapon in Monster Hunter. It has one of the lowest.
Oh, you just
usage
run
rates
through
in the
them.
game, but this
What the
weapon
fuck?
is an absolute defense and offense.
Oh, you have a
monster.
shield too.
We all know the saying that the best offense is a great defense, and vice versa. So if I told you this is a weapon that can really stick it to the monster while defending yourself. And
Just
that
running
fun
through
is
a bunch of
intended.
times doesn't
You
look
really
that fun
are
though.
Sticking to the monster, you're staying up close with this weapon because it has one of the best shielding and defensive capabilities.
Kinda
in
cool
the
that you-
game,
it's
with
like a
the
joust.
largest shield, of course. And because of the shield, you're able to do a lot of counter attacks.
looks kinda
with the
badass,
Lance,
actually.
And also just have really
Like the
good
actual
guarding
model.
capabilities in general, which allows you to stay up close and rewards a more defensive playstyle over a more evasive playstyle. Now the combos with this weapon aren't.
So you just
anything to
fucking
write
tank
home
shit with
about,
it.
as You're mostly just doing
Stabby
the old
damage.
stabby on the monster. But this weapon has really good range. It has pinpoint
the
accuracy
poke
on
stick,
where you
huh?
want to be attacking. And some players may think that this weapon is a bit more of a slow, methodical playstyle, but it really isn't. When you know what you're doing with this weapon, you really can't just be hitting the monster over and over and over again. And this is actually
kinda
a weapon
cool.
that
So you
I
get
would take
rewarded
up
for,
against some of the strongest monsters in the game, because I know
putting out
it
your good
usually
playstyle
can get
here.
the job done. So if you like the idea of sticking to the monster,
line of
doing
sight
all
mechanics.
stabby, but also having good timing to guard and to counter and predict the monster's attacks while you're up next to it, this weapon is a very underrated, and I highly suggest you give it a try. Also, you can dash around with this weapon.
It's just running. Dude, the playstyle that I've seen, like, through almost all that clip was just this guy going, oi! Just running as it go, push, 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 oi, oi, oi! Just running underneath it, ridiculous. Like, repeatedly, man. Okay, I mean, didn't look like the most fun for a first time, but honestly, looked kind of cooler than I was expecting from a Lance, to be fair.
Next up, we have
Okay,
a personal
Gunlance.
favorite weapon of mine.
You got
and
shield,
another weapon
too.
of the Monster Hunter series, the Gunlance. Now, it isn't the typical gun like the bowguns you would think of in Monster Hunter. We'll get to those in a little bit. Now, this is a weapon that is very akin and similar to the Lance as well, but has the ability
that's
to
trash.
explode
Well,
along the
that's-
blade of the weapon, dealing a fixed amount of damage so that no matter where you're hitting the monster, if it's in a good spot or a bad spot, this weapon
Ooh.
always does the same amount of damage with its explosions. This is another
Ooh,
strong
that's
shield
cool.
weapon just like the Lance, but this weapon has more of an offensive.
Whoa, that
playstyle
was
going
cool.
for it. Some of the animations on this weapon can be a bit slow, and this weapon does lose sharpness very easily, which is very important in Monster Hunter. But if you can
Okay.
see past those facts and really understand what this weapon has to bring to the table with its really fun, unique playstyle, that can dish a lot of damage in the right and capable hands, this weapon is absolutely amazing and very unique. But this weapon, like the hunting horn, truly is a work of art, as you get to choose which damage you want to be dealing at a time, whether it's slashing damage or shelling damage through the explosions.
That's
This is a
cool.
weapon that
Do
also
you have
makes
ammo?
use of really well-timed knockdowns, and has a very fun playstyle.
It looks like it has like a reload mechanic or something here.
between the types of attack depending on where you are with the monster, or whether it's a certain monster that you're fighting, and the actual type of gunlance that you use, as there are different shelling types to suit your playstyle. So if you
That
want a
looks kinda
playstyle
cool,
that's
to be
very
fair.
unique, and you actually get to choose whether you like the shelling or the lance attacks more, or you like a little combination of both, this weapon is also really awesome.
Can you like spec into certain playstyles? Is it like you have a weapon and you have a skill set, or do you like then you flesh out your weapon type? So like I can go into like a slicing build with a gun lance, or I can go into like a bullet build. For gun lance, yeah, so you can like choose which one you want emphasis on. That's pretty cool actually. I kind of like that. Okay. Gunlance is okay. Dude, all of these look pretty good so far, actually. Like, all of them have looked better than I was expecting. I thought the longsword was going to be like a one-handed longsword, like a knight's longsword, you know? So it's going to be like a fast, quick build, not like a fucking samurai sword. Switch axe.
Next up, we have a switch
That's
axe.
the problem.
This is a
They're
weapon
all
that was
good.
introduced in Monster Hunter Tri. It's also been a
Shit.
favorite of mine ever since. As the name might imply, this is a weapon that actually switches between 2 attack modes. It's not similar to the dual blades with 2 different stances. This weapon literally switches what the weapon is capable of doing with the press of a button or through certain combo strings. The main playstyle of this weapon is you start off in axe mode, you can power up the axe mode, or you can switch over to the sword mode whenever you want.
So it's literally a
Through
sword
that
and an
mode,
axe.
You can charge up your own gauge, expend a bunch of energy, but once the sword mode's gauge gets too low, you're going to have to get back to axe mode. It's kind of a nice playstyle.
That's pretty cool.
You actually switch
I like
back
that.
and forth as you want without really a whole lot of restrictions. You are still managing.
Why do these all look so awesome? Why have I never played this game?
A gauge with the 2 different weapon play styles, but they both kind of have their own power-ups going for them, so you really can play this weapon how you like. I personally like to play the axe mode, for instance, which is pretty fun and unique.
That looks cool
This
as
weapon
fuck.
doesn't have a whole lot of defensive
Because they are all
capabilities,
awesome.
but this weapon is capable of dishing out a ton of damage and is a pure offense machine. So if you want to be playing 2 different play styles and
I'm not
just
quitting
going
FF,
ham on
guys.
the monster, this weapon is also really cool and super flashy, and I can't recommend this weapon.
That was a
more.
900
Players who
damage
want
hit?
2 different play styles in one, while just being a pure offense machine. So if the switch axe sounds up your alley, then you should give it a try. Next up, we have the
That does
charge
sound
blade,
cool.
very akin to the switch axe as well, as this is a weapon that uses 2 different playstyles. One is a playstyle that is similar
He's got milk. He's got bottles of milk up there.
to the sword and shield, but has a bigger shield and a bigger sword. It's not as agile as the sword and shield.
Bigger sword, bigger shield. Everyone knows bigger is better, dude. What the fuck?
But this is very similar to
File
a lot of the
damage.
attacks that it does. The same thing happens with the charge blade. You charge up your blade while you are in the sword and shield mode, and then you can stick the energy that you're getting and store it into the shield, which can be utilized through its axe
Wait,
mode.
did he just attach the shield to the sword and it made an axe? What the fuck? Okay, that was badass. That was fucking badass, dude. He's like, okay. Ah! Okay, he's got the fucking shield and
sword. It's not
and he just goes.
as agile as the sword and shield, but this is very similar to it in a lot of the attacks that it does. The same thing happens with the charge blade. You charge up your blade while you are in the sword and shield mode, and then you can stick the energy that you're getting and store it into the shield, which can be utilized through its axe mode.
What
to
the
deal
fuck?
Really big damage. And that's
Alright, that
only
was kinda
one of the
badass.
playstyles you
That
can
was so
play with
cool.
this weapon, as this weapon kind of has 3 playstyles. It has a sword charge up mode. There's a playstyle where you expend all of your built up energy into one big damaging attack over and over again. There's also a weapon that expends the energy over time through its savage
Ooh.
axe mode. Now this is
Little
actually
dodge.
one of the
Oh, you can
hardest
stagger the
weapons in
boss
game
too.
to master. It's a very big weapon.
Holy
management
shit, that
playstyle
pumped
where
him.
You need to be managing the energy that you're storing in the proper way that you want to. The combos also are not very intuitive, but this weapon is capable of
Not
dishing out some of
intuitive.
the highest damage in Monster Hunter.
Not good for
it has
me.
shield counters through some of its own attack animations as you are switching between sword and shield and the axe mode. So if you want to play a weapon where you're really
That is
managing
really
the
cool.
energy and how
That
you
is
wanna
such a cool
expend it in
fantasy,
the
though.
playstyle that you want, this weapon might be for you, but
Jesus.
it definitely is not for the faint of heart. This is a very hard weapon, you guys. But the Charge Blade remains one of the best weapons in Monster Hunter, and it's for a very good
Do it,
reason.
Sunthrone.
Next up, we
Play
have
alongside
the
me.
Insect Glaive. The Insect Glaive is one of the more unique weapons in Monster Hunter.
Okay, here we
It's got
go.
this bug
A fan
companion
favorite.
attachment on your arm, actually called the Kinsect. This is a weapon that's very
Kinsect.
similar to the Charge Blade, but the Kinsect actually does all of the energy gathering for you, and that's where you get a lot of your buffs from. You can
Oh,
send the Kinsect
so you have
to fly
AI.
out and attack the monster for you, and depending on the parts of the monster that you
It's
hit,
cheating,
you
it's
call the
AI
Kinsect back
enjoys.
to store certain buffs onto your hunter, which lasts for a certain amount of time. There's a few different types of buffs that your Kinsect can get for you. Most importantly,
I like the
damage buff, but
agility
getting
on it,
all
though,
these
like
buffs at
flying
the same
around
time
and-
will result in an even bigger buff to your hunter. And
She's
that's
just
where the
flying
weapon
around in the
management
air.
Playstyle really comes in with this. This weapon is extremely agile, though, as this weapon is able to access the air from a pole vault. It has really
That's
cool,
cool.
and flashy aerial attacks. attacks that deal very good mount damage for getting an eventual knockdown on a monster, but this weapon is also dishing out really good damage on the ground with a very thrust halberdy playstyle. So if you want to be dealing really good damage on the ground, but also soaring through the skies with access to the jump,
This is what I thought Twin Blade would be.
This weapon might be for you, especially if you like managing your own attack combos while managing your Kinsect at the same time.
This is actually Dragoon.
Light bowgun.
That was actually kind of badass, the insect one. So you have so you're a Dragoon with an AI pet that collects you resources. That's pretty sweet. And you can jump around and basically be like untouchable. Sounds overpowered as hell. Dude, I had no idea Monster Hunter was this cool.
There are two bowguns in Monster Hunter World, but we're starting with the smaller but more evasive one. The light bowgun is a very fun weapon as you get to choose what kind of damage you want to be dealing.
We're in the gulag now with the ranged.
You want to be applying on the monster, also the use of ammo.
Most manually, okay.
This is a weapon that has access to really good crowd control, as you can equip ammo like sleep ammo or paralysis ammo.
That's
to really
pretty cool.
Lock the monster down for you or your teammates. Not only is it
Sounds
a very
good in a group
crowd control choice, but this weapon also keeps you at a good distance from the monster, so it's a bit of a safer playstyle as well. Managing your ammo can be a bit tough, though. It requires the use of very good menu navigating.
It's a bit more of a skill cap on this one.
If you know how to do it, but for a lot of newer players, it is a bit much to manage when you're actually in the heat of a hunt. Now, the damage isn't as strong as its counterpart, which we will be getting to next, but the combination of having really good movement, really good evading tactics, range damage,
sounds like a really good group play one.
This weapon is a big favorite of mine, as you really can't sit back and relax while you play.
Yeah, support.
And there are plenty of play styles where you are dishing out mad damage.
Like, because I imagine getting all that out when you're being focused in like single player or solo play is going to be rough. But if you got someone else tanking for you, taking the heat and getting the telegraphs on them and stuff, you can kind of sit at the back and just be like, I'll put it to sleep. I'll work on this, boys. How easy is it to change between weapons? Like, do you level them all up individually? Or like, let's say I start a playthrough of one. How easy is it for me to just like try out another one? Or do I have to start over? Like, will I be massively hindered for not starting my playthrough one or picking beforehand? You build the weapon. You build it. Oh, so you get like materials off the monsters and then you build the weapons and shit? Your level up is your gear. Okay, so if I have a good set of gear, will the stats of that carry over to any weapon and stuff that I have? So I'm not like hindered by changing up. I'm more, once I get to a point, I'm at a point, right?
If you know how to utilize this weapon properly. Next up, the counterpart to the light bowgun, we have the heavy bowgun. This weapon has access to extremely high damage, and some consider this weapon to be the easy mode of Monster Hunter. This weapon actually has access to a shield mod, which you can equip on the weapon. And we are talking about mods.
Heavy bowgun with a shield.
Bowguns are capable of custom modifications to also alter your play style.
That's pretty cool.
Which is also another reason why you might want to pick up one of these ranged.
This is a shotgun.
But the heavy bowgun has a wide variety of attacks that you can unleash due to the ammo that you can.
You just tank that.
This weapon, just like the light bowgun. This weapon is also very technical, as you have to be good with the menu management. The main difference between the heavy bowgun and the
That's
light
another
bowgun
menu skill cap.
You are dealing a lot more damage with this weapon, but you are a lot more vulnerable and you are a lot slower, as this weapon is heavy, like the name implies.
I bet this is good with group play then. You can just stand at the side and just be like...
bowgun, but you want to be dishing out more damage, then the heavy bowgun is also a very good choice. Last but not least, we have the bow. Bows in Monster Hunter are actually very large and use very large arrows to hit your opponents. Unlike
Looks cool as fuck.
guns in Monster Hunter, though, the bow actually has an unlimited amount of arrows that you can use. So the bow is actually a nice range choice.
Oh, there's two! He cut it in half!
A lot of different ammo types, but the bow does have special coatings that you can apply to your arrows to get special status effects as you like. So the bow also has decent crowd control ability, but the bow does put a hamper on your stamina meter. Similar to the dual blades, the bow actually has really good mobility at the cost of some stamina meter, which leads to a stamina.
So harder to dodge because you're going to be using a lot for damage, right?
Play style with the bow, like the bow guns, but also a similar.
So you got to think about that extra dynamic.
Where you're playing very evasively, makes this a kind of nice hybrid weapon in between those play styles. The bow also has very fast movement in general, and it has really good damage uptime if you can dance around the monster through the use of its evasive tactics. attacks. So if you like the idea of managing your stamina just like the dual blades by having ranged options and really great mobility, and
That's
good
definitely
damage
not
up
one I
front,
would
then this
start the
weapon
game
also
as,
might be
but
for
might
you.
build into.
While monster is in the name of Monster Hunter, I feel like the weapons truly are the soul
Max
of
out
the
stam.
series. Everybody
Fair
gets
enough.
to choose their own favorite weapon with its unique play style to really suit their needs and to express themselves. What makes the weapons in Monster Hunter very special, in my opinion, as
All
well,
these look
is
so
compared
cool,
to a lot
actually.
of other game series out there, the weapons in this game, there really is no bad weapon. All these weapons are capable of dishing out really good damage, but also have very unique play styles. There's a reason why there's a cult behind the hammer, or the very respected but
I've seen some hammer enjoyers in the chat.
or one of the most used weapons, the longsword. It gets a lot of attraction, but for really good reason, as it's a very easy to pick up weapon, but very hard to master. As for my favorite weapon in
That looks
Monster
so
Hunter,
badass,
it's really hard
though.
to choose most of the time because there just simply are too many good choices.
That's exactly how I feel right now. I'm so overwhelmed because I thought we were gonna come out of this video, and I was like, I went in, I was like, I'm probably not gonna like the look of any of the ranged ones, and probably not anything with a shield. And he somehow made everything with a shield look really cool. So I'm like, well, now they're in the mix, and then everything huge and explodey is in the mix. In fact, the only one I kind of am not sold on is really the great sword. Everything else looks pretty cool. Almost everything. I'm super intrigued by the charge blade, the insect glaive, the switch axe, the gunlance, the long sword, and even the sword and shield. To be honest, I'm kind of on those ones right now. And then I feel like for group play, the light bowgun and the hunting horn will be fun. Oh god damn it! I'm like paralysis analysis. I'm overwhelmed.
So I hope I was able to shed light on why these weapons are so awesome in the first place. and
Yeah,
what weapon
you
might
really
be for
did,
you.
mate.
So that is going to do it
Too
for today,
much.
guys and gals. I
Why
hope
didn't you make some of
enjoyed
them
the
look
video.
bad?
All I have left to ask is, which weapon did you think was the most exciting in this video? Which
Spin a
weapon do you think
wheel.
is the hardest to master? And if you're already playing or played Monster Hunter before, what is your favorite weapon? Please let me know in the comments down below. I'm very eager to read your
Chat,
responses.
what's
as
our
going
favorite
into the
weapons?
future for Monster
Hit the
Hunter,
Twitch chat
heading
up.
into the next game, Monster Hunter Wilds. I feel like the weapons are going to get a lot of attraction before that game even releases.
Yeah.
But that is it for today's video, guys and gals.
It's like the testing
I'm signing
ground.
off. This has been Terrorizer, and I'll catch you all in the next one.
Thank you, Terrorizer.
Peace.
That was a sweet video. Guys, I'm going to link it too. Go give it a like. You can comment your favorite weapon in his comments too, because it will give him engagement. And give it a like. But yeah, he made all of them look really cool, to be honest. I have no idea what to pick. I've absolutely no idea. We'll definitely just take the game one step at a time, I think. Damn, you guys all fucking play Monster Hunter, huh? Like, all my regulars in the chat just sat here like, yeah, we literally all play. This is like some cult I've not been a part of, dude. I've just been missing out, bro. I'm going to be doing Monster Hunter tomorrow, and we're going to be doing it on next Tuesday and Wednesday. 2 days next week, 1 day this week. Honestly, I have some thinking to do. I have some thinking to do. Gut feeling says I'm going to go with maybe start on Sword and Shield to just learn like how the game kind of works. Okay, how realistic of a path is this? If I start on Sword and Shield, switch into either Gunlance, Switch Axe, or Charge Blade, and then maybe go Long Sword. Is this like a viable path? Very realistic. That might be like where my head's at right now. Sword and Shield to kind of get a feel for like the rolling, get a feel for the mobility, get a feel for like how the boss telegraphs their abilities. So I got a little bit more defense and like nimbleness. And then switch into something a bit more big dick and interesting. And then go into like a more skill capped gameplay.